Good evening, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this meeting of the Audit and Governance Committee. I am Councillor Barry Pierpoint, the chairman of this committee, and to my right is Vice Chairman Councillor Anton Dunning. Before we start the meeting, may I remind everyone in attendance this evening that the meeting is being streamed live on YouTube. For the benefit of any members of the public, and nobody there at the moment, but I will go through this. Before we move into the preliminary items of this evening's agenda, I need to run through a few housekeeping details. The restroom facilities are available for ladies on this floor and halfway down the main stairwell for gentlemen. In the event of a fire alarm sounding, officers will escort everyone out of the building to the nearest fire safety point in the car park. Will all persons addressing this meeting please do so through the microphone system at all times. This meeting is being recorded. Please be advised that abuse or intimidation of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone who is deemed to breach this requirement will be warned and asked to refrain. If the behaviour persists, they will be asked to leave the meeting. Before I go on to the main part of the agenda, I just want to say from all of us here, we're all thinking very carefully of Councillor Woodliffe, who's not very well. I believe he's either in hospital or been in hospital, and I'd like to say on behalf of this committee, we send him all our best wishes. I hope you don't mind me doing that on behalf of everyone. Obviously, those who know Councillor Woodliffe is very active and long-standing councillor, and we wish him all the best and all the best wishes. Right, now we move to part one of the agenda, the preliminaries. Apologies for absence. Are there any apologies?
Yes, Chairman, we've had apologies from Councillors Gleeson, Marston and Savikian.
Thank you very much. Does any member wish to declare any interest in respect of any items on the agenda? No, thank you. Do I have the permission to sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of July 2024? Lovely. Yes.
We've received apologies for Councillor Doreen, but she's not a formal member of the committee, but they will be noted in the minutes.
Okay, thank you. You want me to put the date as well on here? It was 14th of the 10th, 24. There you are. Thank you very much. I'm not quite sure if that's in the right order, but thank you. Right. Are there any outstanding actions from the last meeting?
There are none, Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the public?
There are none, Chairman.
And that concludes the preliminaries. We'll now move to part two of the agenda items. Now, because Sean wants to shoot off, he's got another meeting to go to, we're going to ask Sean to move into the agenda item and do his report first, and then we'll go back to the agenda from there. Okay, Sean, over to you.
Thank you very much. You have before you on page 213 the quarter one Treasury report for 2024-25. This is the overarching report that starts on page 213 and provides a summary of the Appendix A, but I propose to go through the Appendix A as is normal with you tonight. That starts on page 220. So this is for the quarter ending the 30th of June 2024. The CIPFA Code of Practice for Treasury Management recommends that members be updated on treasury management activities at least quarterly. This report therefore ensures the Council is implementing best practice in accordance with the Code. Paragraph 2, Link Group, who are the Council's external Treasury advisors, have provided us with an economic update for the first quarter, and you'll see those bullet points at the start with gross domestic product flatlining during the first quarter ending in April, a stalling in the downtrend of wages, so maintained around 5.9%, and consumer price index dropping to around the 2% mark, which is where the Bank of England's forecast and aim is to maintain. The Bank of England during the quarter held the base rates at 5.2% in May and June, but you will be aware that since the quarter ended, it did reduce the base rate down to 5% at its meeting in August. I don't propose to go through the detailed report that Link have provided in paragraph 2. So I then move to paragraph 3, which is the interest rate forecast. And on page 224, you'll see the table that shows their latest forecast for the Bank of England base rate. And you'll see there September 2024, their forecast is 5%, and that is where it is at the moment. And their expectation is that the bank base rate will drop to 4.5% by end of December and 4% by March 2025, which is the end of the financial year. Market forecast is that the next cut is likely to be November or December. Paragraph 4 refers to the Council's annual investment strategy. This was incorporated in the Treasury Management Strategy Statement for 2024-25 and was approved by Council on the 4th of March. The priorities of the Council in relation to investments were set as being the security of capital, liquidity and yield in that order. Page 225, there's a paragraph there in relation to the investment performance year to date as at the 30th of June 2024. And that chart or graph there shows the interest rates available on deposits in the market. And you'll see over differing periods from 1 month through to 12 months, rates have been relatively flat throughout the first quarter of the year. I would like to flag up that on the 20th of May 2024, the limit of 7.5 million with the CCLA money market fund was breached by 150,000 and was corrected on the following day when it was noticed, and internal processes have been reviewed to ensure further breaches don't occur. The Section 151 officer was informed on the day, and following the discussions, it was agreed that it would be corrected the day after. On page 226, it shows the Council's investments held at the 30th of June, and you'll see the split there between all the financial institutions and the maturity dates, yields on those and whether they are fixed or variable deposits. And the overall investments total just under £30 million. Some of those investments have matured and have been reinvested, or new investments have been taken out, and information in relation to that will be forwarded to you in the Q2 midterm report. Page 227 provides the usual table in relation to the Council's property fund investments, totalling £17.326 million. The landscape table on page 228 provides you with the up-to-date information and performance information of those property funds. And you'll see the third column, which shows the Q1 budgeted net revenue return, totaling 176,712. That was effectively the budget for the first quarter. And the estimated returns for the quarter was 131,000. So slightly below budget there. Part of that is due to the fact that we accrued investment interest during 2023-24 at the end of the financial year. So the correction of that accrual is in the current financial year. And the annual budget for the year on property funds is just under 709,000. And their forecast outturn at the moment, as at Q1, was just over 650,000. Capital values column there is the net asset value, currently stands at just over £15 million, which is a reduction in value of just over £2.25 million. The Q1 change in value is an increase in value of just under 69,000. So heading in the right direction again. Hopefully that will continue. The property fund dividends on the chart on table on page 229 at the top. So you've received distributions since purchasing the property funds of just over £4 million, and you've got distributions in the current year of 153,000, and the adjustment accruals of just over 22,000, which means your total distributions received to date since purchase now is 4.2 million, just over £4.2 million. By way of an update on the M&G UK Property Fund, which is liquidating their assets and returning the fund sales proceeds to the investors, there's been no sales proceeds or dividends returned to the council in the first quarter, so there's no change, and that balance remains at £336,276. The table at the bottom of page 229 provides the maturity profile of the investments. And you'll see there that that's the total investments of just under £47 million, split in various time periods, and a relatively even spread, with the exception of your long-term investments, which is 37% of the portfolio. The landscape table on page 230 provides a bit more of an update in relation to the performance of the Treasury investments in relation to budget and the property fund investments. So you'll see the first column there, the budget for Q1. The overall budget for investment income was just over 395,000, which was estimated yield of 4.5%. And the actual return has been 565,000, which is a yield of 4.796%. So the variance overall for the first quarter is a favourable variance of just under £170,000 ahead of budget. The annual budget for the year is just under £1.6 million, and the forecast outturn as at Q1 end was projected to be just over 1.9 million. So the forecast variance on investment income is just over £323,000. The position in paragraph 5 in relation to borrowing, council, as you will be aware, has £1 million of borrowing at a rate of 11.125%, and the table there shows you the forecast for interest payments on that borrowing, and you'll see they are in line with budget, as the borrowing is at a fixed rate, so the amounts that are budgeted for will be the outturns. In relation to borrowing, there's a chart over the page on 232 which shows the PWLB borrowing rates in the market. And whilst there has been a little bit of up and down on those rates, if we look at the 50-year period, it's slightly higher than it was at the start of the financial year. The overall summary relating to the Treasury position against budget and forecast outturn is very similar. This table effectively brings the investment income and the borrowing costs all together, and you'll see there the overall position is still, because the borrowing payments were fixed and therefore there's no variance. Your Q1 position is just under favourable variance of just under 170,000, and an outturn forecast to be just under 324,000. On page 234, you have an update in relation to the Council's Treasury indicators and prudential indicators for 2024-25, and this shows the position in relation to the budget and the outturn position for Q1. There is also on page 235 an update in relation to the Council's capital expenditure and the financing of that capital expenditure, just by way purely of an update in relation to how we are doing in relation to that programme. I don't propose to say any more. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. And the recommendation is that the Audit and Governance Committee review and receive the updates of this report.
Thank you, Sean. That's very kind of you. I just want to say that Christine's on the screen behind me. I can't see if she's waving. So, Christine, if you need to jump in any time, just jump in, because I can't see whether you're saying anything or not. So
I will do. Don't worry, Chairman.
I know you will. Okay, thank you very much. Before we'll take the questions. I've got one question to ask you. On 225, you mentioned on the 20th of May this year, the limit of 7.5 was breached by 150k. Did that have any impact at all on anything that we're doing in this sort of situation?
It didn't have any impact. We are required, as part of the Treasury strategy, if we breach any limits or do anything incorrect in accordance with the Treasury strategy, we are obliged to inform the committee of that fact. Effectively, the CCLA money market is where we keep our instant access funds, and effectively what had happened is we put 150,000 in there above the limit that is permitted by council, and when we realised the error, what we did was we withdrew that back out the following day. So we breached the limit by £150,000 for one day.
So there's no fines or being wrapped over the knuckles, anything like that at all? No.
No, we still received interest on those funds, albeit it's the fact that we breached the limit.
Okay. Well done. Thank you very much for that. Right, we'll take questions. Have you got any questions from the floor? Anybody like to ask any question? Councillor Middleton.
And just thinking about pensions and that sort of thing, because there's a budget coming up and we don't know what's going to happen with that. Each month and through the year, we must collect a lot of pension money in from employees, and the council's contribution goes in there as well. Is that in the money you're talking about, or is that out in a completely separate packet somewhere with somebody like London and Scandinavia or whatever?
Yes, in relation to the council's employees, public sector partnership services employees, etc., we deduct the pension contributions from their salaries, but the pension administrators are West Yorkshire Pension Scheme, who administer the Lincolnshire County Council pension scheme on behalf of all the authorities. So what is, we deduct the pension contributions from the salaries, and we pay over to the pension companies within a month those pension contributions that are being deducted alongside the employer's pension contributions as well.
Can I assist, Chairman, as well? Literally, the cash is only with us days, because literally we have to pay it over to the pension fund pretty quickly after the deduction has taken place from salary, and then obviously they decide to invest it as part of that pension fund process.
Thank you, Christine, and noted. Yeah, Councillor Gilbert.
Yeah, just a very quick question. In relation to the general fund capital expenditure, where does the purchase of B&M feature in these numbers, just out of curiosity? Or is it in there? Maybe it's not in there.
If that's already been purchased, it won't be part of your current capital programme, because it's already been part of historic capital programmes when that happened.
Thank you very much.
Are there any further questions for Sean from anyone? Okay, there's not. So the committee's asked a note, and we've commented on this report. Is everyone happy to take this as noted? And because comments have been recorded by the officers, are we all agreed? Thank you very much, Sean, for your report. Very kind of you, and have a good evening. Thank you. We'll go back to the agenda, and we'll go back to item 1 now. We'll go back to the actual agenda. Item 1, this is the final external audit plan and strategy for the year ending the 31st of March. On the agenda this evening, there's a final, which starts on page 11 of the pack, and ask James to present it to us. James, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. So as you say, this is our final updated external audit plan and memorandum for the year ending 31st of March 2024, the previous version of which was presented at this meeting in July. This version is presented to you upon completion of our planning and risk assessment work over the financial statements and value for money arrangements in place at the Council as at the 31st of March 2024, with all changes within this report from the previous version included in green within the document. Based on its previous presentation, I don't intend to say much or go into a lot of the detail within the report, given that the majority of the changes are quite minor in nature. But that being said, the key changes within the report come on page 15, which show an update to our group and council materiality and misstatement reporting thresholds, which have been updated upon receipt of the draft financial statements, and updated benchmark figures, which are total expenditure for the year. On page 18, you can see a refinement of our significant risk over the valuation of land and buildings, whereby we have focused in on that risk to consider in more detail the assets which are valued under the depreciated replacement cost method, rather than all land and buildings under revaluation. And on page 28 of the pack, you can see the conclusion of our value for money risk assessment, where we conclude that we have not identified any significant risks, that significant weaknesses are evident within the Council's arrangement to secure value for money in the year. So happy to stop there and take any additional questions following on from that presentation and the one in July.
Thank you, James. Councillor Middleton.
Just continuing on from what my question to Sean there. When I was in British Steel's pension fund in 1970s and again in 2000, by the time they got to 2000, they were so oversubscribed that they took a holiday and didn't have to put any more money in because there was so much money swirling around in there, it didn't need it. And I see in here you say that the market conditions have changed and that pension funds are growing quite well. Is Boston Borough Council ever likely to get into a position where it could take a pensions holiday?
I'll have to be careful in terms of my role as external auditor. I know I've had conversations with Christine in the past, who has mentioned that she was speaking to the pensions administrator around the future and potential surplus nature of those and what type of deductions may be needed or potential holidays, but I'll let Christine come on.
So on that particular point, it depends on the status of the fund at any particular point in time and at the triennial review, and also in terms of the state of the international markets and the value of investments. I think it's fair to say that Boston's fund has done better over the past few years. I'd also say that the market conditions have improved. It wouldn't take well, unless government changed the rules, it wouldn't take a holiday per se. It'd be more whether or not the fund doesn't need the level of contributions that it has in the past. So when the triennial review takes place, and we will use external experts to take our own advice, that's what I'm planning to do, to advise us. It would be then about making sure the appropriate level of resources go into the fund, no more than required, no less than required, but that appropriate value. The rules have changed over the years. The fund has to catch up with itself over a 20-year period, and that's a countdown now. So the years are reducing as time goes on to get it to a fully funded position. So that's one of the other reasons that the funds are on catch up at the moment and doing better, because they're receiving more cash to invest to put them in that situation. Nationally, the funds are doing better, and it is one that there's a lot of interest in at the moment. But as I said, no more than required, no less than required to keep it on track.
So is it realistic we could be taking a partial holiday or a reduction in our investments in there and saving some money perhaps in the next 2 or 3 years?
I think the language around a holiday is not correct. This is not about a holiday. This is about the fund doing better than anticipated, and therefore the triennial review tells you the amount you need to be putting in is less.
Right.
So that we
So
will
we
need
could
to wait.
make some saving.
If the
hopefully.
review tells us that we don't need to be putting in as much as we are, then yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Middleton. Thank you, Christina. Any other questions on the part of this report for James? Councillor Gilbert, go on.
I'm not particularly sort of savvy when it comes to numbers, I have to be honest. So when I read all these papers yesterday, all sorts of ideas and things were popping into my head. Some of them might be relevant, some of them might not be. But the overall position that I think I picked up from the papers overall was that we've actually done rather well in the last 12 months or so as a council. We've saved ourselves quite a bit of money, but some of that money that we've saved has come from paying off the public works loan. But overall, I think there are still significant challenges there for the forthcoming years, and I just wonder whether or not you've got any concept or can share your concept of how we go forward, given the fact that the overall projection seems to me anyway to be still fairly challenging, even though this particular financial year has been rather good, rather better than expected.
So as part of our role as external auditors, we provide assurance over the numbers within the financial statements themselves to show that they show a true and fair view of the council's position. And as you say, comparatively speaking, compared to the rest of the country, and some councils in different parts of the country, it's been a positive year. Our work over the value for money arrangements considers the processes, controls, policies, and different aspects that you've got in place to ensure financial sustainability in the short and medium term, your governance arrangements, and also how you ensure economy, efficiency and effectiveness in your use of resources. So in any one year, we can see that quite a lot of work has gone into ensuring that those three key pillars are understood, and there are a lot of arrangements, such as Sean's report, to give you assurance over the Treasury management strategy and where we go forward from there. I suppose I would stress management's responsibility in ensuring the long-term, short-term, medium and long-term financial viability, and they will have plans in terms of their medium-term financial strategy and short-term budgeting arrangements that will help guarantee that. But as you mentioned, it's difficult out there. There's uncertainty around funding streams. It's a lot of organisations are having to implement a lot stricter and a lot more formal cost savings programs year on year in order to ensure that financial sustainability and ensure that ultimate value for money is obtained in your use of resources.
Supplementary then, and again, you know, that's been very helpful, thank you. But I was looking into the B&M purchase. I don't know whether that's something that you've actually specifically looked at in terms of looking at the due diligence around that. And I think I think all those areas have been given a clean bill of health in terms of, you know, the approach that's been adopted by the council. But I did explore with Companies House, the company that we purchased the B&M building off. And they seem to have gone into some sort of voluntary liquidation, or started the process of voluntary liquidation sometime middle of this year, with a likely last year, with a voluntary, with actual wind up in December of this year. And I just wonder whether that's something that as a council we should have been either aware of, or we should be concerned about.
So obviously I'll allow management to comment on that, because they might have more detail relevant to that transaction and the outcome that you discuss. I suppose as part of our work for the 23-24 financial year, we haven't identified any issues in the arrangements in terms of key decisions or the governance arrangements around decisions that have been made. However, we will take that away and have a look into it to see if it does impact any of our work or opinion for this year, but nothing specific from us at this stage. But I will come back to you on that.
That was a good point raised there, and well done. It's quite worrying to hear things like that. But anyway, the powers that be in this room will then no doubt investigate it and let us know how they get on. Are there any more questions before I ask James to move on? No, James, carry on then, please.
It's okay with you, Chairman. My colleague Rosie's here. She's the brains and the brawn behind the detail within the report, so I'll let her do the honours if that's okay.
Definitely.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'll try my best. I know, yeah, built me up so I can fall. No, anyway, yeah. So this is a progress report, but I will say that the audit is substantially complete. But we have outlined some areas that are still outstanding on page 3, but that's page 63 of the pack. In the audit plan, we had 3 significant audit risks. The first one, valuation of land and buildings, which is on page 65 to 66 of your pack. We have now completed testing over the assumptions linked to the significant risk, which we identified as location factor, BCIS indices and obsolescence, and all were found to be neutral. On pages 67 to 68, we've got the second significant risk, which was management override of controls. We've completed our testing in this area. Nothing specific I want to raise with you at this time. And our third significant risk can be seen on pages 69 to 70, is evaluation of the post-retirement benefit obligations. So we have received initial results from our actuaries who have evaluated the significant assumptions and have found these to be balanced. I'll take the rest of the report as read, but just to highlight some key pages for yourselves. On page 76, we've got uncorrected audit misstatements. So we identified 2 uncorrected audit misstatements, and if they remain uncorrected, they will not have an impact on our audit opinion. So we've agreed with management, they're fine to remain uncorrected. On page 77, we've got corrected audit misstatements. So again, 2 corrected audit misstatements. We've discussed these with management and they've agreed to amend these in the final version of the statements. On page 78, we've got 4 misstatements in respect of disclosures. We've discussed these with management and they will be corrected in the final version. And then on pages 79 to 84, we've got a summary of control deficiencies and other recommendations. We've not identified any significant control deficiencies. we have raised 4 medium and 3 low-level recommendations, which we've discussed with management, and a management response has been provided for each. I'll pause there, but happy to take any questions.
Before you do, I'm going to have to go backwards because I've overstepped the mark here. We should have actually want to comment on, which we have done, and take note, and there was agreed of what James said, because that's a separate report. I haven't jumped the gun here a little bit, so my fault. I do apologise. If I hadn't got somebody on this side of sorting me out, I'd probably be in a right pickle. So anyway, I don't mind putting my hands up because I'm there's a lot to sort of grasp here. So going back to what James said, I'll come back to you in a moment. We've noted. Are we all in favour and taking the report as read and recorded details by the officers? All in favour? Right, so let's clarify that bit. Then we'll move forward to your report, which you've just given us. Thank you very much. I'll ask for any questions at this point now. So, Councillor Cantwell.
Yeah, apologies, Chair. I didn't think we were moving on so quickly from the
Nor
first
did
bit. Is it okay if I ask the officers a question on that?
Yes.
Yeah. No worries. I just wanted to ask on page 18, which is page 30 of the pack, and the 4th bullet point down mentions a efficiency board chaired by the finance officer, and I just wondered what are the arrangements of this board, because I haven't seen it unless I've missed it noted before. I just wondered, is this a committee that produces minutes? What's the democratic oversight from elected members of this board? Is it attended by elected members? The portfolio holder, for example. So yeah, I just wanted some more clarity on it, if that's okay.
Chairman, do you want me to answer this?
Please, if you don't mind.
So this is an officer working group, for clarity. This is not does not have member oversight, nor would it be appropriate for it to. It feeds into the finance portfolio holder and cabinet in terms of monitoring of savings, efficiencies and opportunities. Most of those have already been through the council system because they are articulated in your annual delivery plan. So there may be things like service reviews, for example, that are captured within your annual delivery plan, and they will be monitored through that process. But also similarly, services may wish to come up with ideas that might be innovative or a bit different. That is their environment for making those suggestions and having them considered and worked through. Should they then get some substance, they would come to yourself as your cabinet as propositions and opportunities for them to consider.
Thank you, Christine. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, just one further point on that. I mean, I appreciate it goes to cabinet, but are these recommendations able to come to audit and governance? Well, not to debate or discuss, just for us to note and kind of keep into the loop and what's going on.
So no, this is the process would be for you to know that that mechanism is in place, that we've put those procedures and processes in place to give assurance that your delivery plans will be delivered. Just like every quarter or month we'll sit down and monitor our performance, manage our risks. We also manage our efficiencies, and they go through the necessary reporting processes. You'll see that Cabinet every quarter gets a report on the efficiencies that have been achieved to date in the finance report. So that information is there. Audit and governance's role is to have assurance that the processes are in place, not to see the detail or to scrutinise the propositions that are being considered.
Just one further thing for me. I appreciate that, I appreciate the point you're making, but a big part of what this committee does is also the assurance of risk, something we've done with the P cards. And efficiency savings is a very big risk for our council, and considering the impact of the drainage board fees as well. So is there not the argument that as efficiency savings are such a large risk for us, that the audit and governance could perhaps have some involvement or could note the recommendations coming from this?
Cabinet have that oversight, and that is their role as overseeing the financial context and the efficiencies and the annual delivery plan. That's where that sits, Councillor.
Thank you, Christine. I think if you're concerned, I think you should, you could attend cabinet meetings. You can go to a cabinet, sit in there, and I think they'll let you ask questions as well. So if you have got issues, what the cabinet's discussing or debating from what officers have presented to them, then you're quite well in your rights to go and sit in there and ask the right questions. I mean, we do have risks here in this committee, as you know, from Suzanne, and she just cover quite a big area. But I think that point that they've made, I'm satisfied with, and that's the process. But I think for your point of view, you need to take it further or go and sit in and ask the questions with the relevant cabinet members. All right, are you happy with that? Right. So, Councillor Mountain, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. On page 79 of the report, the control deficiencies. 4 of the 5 bank reconciliations are now up to date, which is brilliant, although they are delayed as of September. When have we got a date when the final reconciliation will be done? Because looking at this is nearly 6 months on from when they were meant to have been done.
I can confirm as of last week, the all 5 bank reconciliations have been reconciled up to the end of September.
Brilliant, thank you.
Are there any more questions before I go back to Rosie? Any more questions for Rosie or anybody else? Right, so can I suggest that we take a note of the comments, and are we all in favour of the report that Rosie presented to us? And if so, the officers have recorded all the notes anyway. Everybody happy? Lovely. Right, let's go on to item 3, which is the annual governance statement. It's on page, I keep forgetting to write the page numbers out, 87 to 192. Somebody wants to wave to me.
Chairman, with your indulgence, could I just put a few words in before Nicole starts, who I assume is presenting the report?
Yes, please, fire away.
I just wanted to compliment the staff at PSPS with regards to the statement. Members may not be aware that as at the end of September, which was only a few weeks ago, only 2 authorities had finished their audits. Your team is now getting very close to the completion of the audit for 23-24, and I think that is to absolutely be commended as outstanding work. There will be a lot of accountants and auditors who'd wish they'd probably got further audits completed in this year. So it's been a hugely challenging environment, new auditors and a statement of accounts completed at pace. So very well done to the staff involved and the auditors involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. I think we're all on this table now will endorse that, and I'd like to thank your team and your team, both the 2 teams there, for working well together and getting us right up to date. Well done. It's nice to have some good news, because we sit here sometimes and constantly hammer you with difficult questions. It's nice to be able to appreciate you and say thank you. On behalf of everyone on this table, thank you both for all the hard work you've done to get us to where we are today. Thank you very much, Christine. Let's move on to the annual governance statement, and that is Nicole.
Thank you, Chair. So this starts on page 87. So this report details the annual governance statement and financial statements relating to the financial year 23-24. There are 4 recommendations, 1 for the annual governance statement and 3 for the financial statements, which are listed on pages 87 to 88. The draft annual governance statement and unaudited financial statements for 23-24 were considered by the Audit and Governance Committee on the 8th of July. The audited annual governance statement and financial statements are presented to committee for their review and approval today. The annual governance statement starts on page 177 and finishes on page 187 of the agenda pack. The annual governance statement is a statutory document which explains the processes and procedures in place to enable the council to carry out its functions effectively. The statement is produced following a review of the council's governance arrangements and includes an action plan to address governance issues identified. The summary, including actions and timescales, are listed on page 187. The Accounts and Audit Amendment Regulations 2024 stipulate the statutory deadline for publishing the financial statements for 23-24 is the 28th of February 2025. The external audit of the financial statements for year ending 31st of March 24 is now substantially complete. The financial statements are detailed on pages 93 to 192 of the agenda pack. A small number of presentational adjustments were made to the audited financial statements to ensure compliance with the Code of Practice on Local Authority Accounting. Apologies, Chair. As per KPMG's report, there are two uncorrected audit misstatements, and they have confirmed this will not have an impact on the audit opinion. Control deficiencies were identified for which management responses have been provided. Work is already underway on these items to ensure they are implemented by the due dates. These are detailed in the external audit progress report just presented by KPMG. I don't propose to go through the appendix in detail, but I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much there, Nicole, for that report. I'll open the meeting for comments and questions. Start off with Councillor Cantwell.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask, and I don't know whether it's something you're best suited to answer or the officers, but at full council in September, I believe Councillor Bedford mentioned that the council owns a farm going along the A52, and I wondered if that was true, if it's counted in our records and our assets. It's not something I've come across in audit and governance before, so I just wanted to see if it is true.
Anyone to reply? Yes, okay, Nicole.
I don't have the detail to that one to hand, but I can take that away and get back to you if that's okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that could be add that to the actions and then we can.
Was that the A52? Apologies, farm on.
I wasn't clear on the specifics, but I think it was out towards the A52, Old Leakham Wrangle way. And I'm not sure on the details of that, but it's the first I've heard of it. So yeah, any information is much appreciated.
Thank you.
Is this hearsay or is it something you know of?
Well, it's something Councillor Bedford said in the meeting, and he was leader of the council for 6 years. So it's something I would like to get confirmation of whether we do actually have a farm or we don't have a farm. So
We should have a farm.
We'll take note of that. I mean, we are obviously noting all the action points, and just for confirmation, Amanda's now doing the action points, and she's got a sheet here that I got as well. And these action points with all the answers were all answered from last time. She'll now attach those to the minutes of these packs of all the action points and the answers that go with them. So you'll get that in future. So when we had problems before saying, has that been done, has that been done, all the action points are now being recorded and the answers are now going to be provided for us for the next meeting. So we know exactly where we stand.
yeah, happy to see that. So yeah.
More, and so am I, which is better because we keep asking questions that we've already asked before. Anyway, regarding the farm, we'll have to find out where we stand on that. James.
Just to say that from memories of our own review of the file, there is farmland in the books valued at £900,000. I don't know whether it's the same farmland, but I know we've covered it in our testing. So I don't know which. I'm not aware of the road names around here or where the farms may be, but I know we have tested it and got assurance over it. So we can also go back to the records and determine whether we're talking about the same piece.
Yeah, it'd just be good to know the details of it, because I'd say it's not something I've come across before in the year and a bit I've been on audit and governance. So,
Chairman, can I assist?
Sorry, carry on.
There is a farm. Again, this is a query that probably needs to be directed to the AD for assets to provide a response. These are asset queries or scrutiny queries, if you like. Yes, there is a farm. That farm's name is Corporation Farm. Whether or not it is along that piece of road, I'm not familiar with its exact geographic location. That is something that the AD for assets can respond to.
Well, I'd be interested to know whether the farm's working live, collecting fees or doing anything, or are we letting it out to somebody else? I'd be interested to know the detail because I didn't know we had a farm. and it's not far from where I live by the sound of it. I'm certainly not working on it. Right, so we'll get the information and from the AD and we'll put that on the agenda. Councillor Austin.
I've walked every field on the farm, so I can confirm that we have one still.
Interesting. Thank you very much for that, but we'll wait for the official answer to come back so we know exactly where we stand, because there's a lot of speculation at the moment, and I'm quite interested to know, like we all are, where we are. Right, we'll move on. Any more questions for Nicole? So, on the agenda. Two recommendations. Right, so here we are then. Recommendations. The Audit and Governance Committee approve the annual governance statement. Is that the one?
That one first.
Pages 85 to 89, Appendix 1. Are we okay with that? To recommend to approve it? I want to propose in a second. I beg your pardon. Right. Proposer by Councillor Danny, seconded by Councillor Mountain. Right, so we'll move on to the vote. All those in favour? Looks like it's carried. No against, no abstentions, is there? No. Right, the following recommendations. Following approval of the Council Annual Governance Statement, approval of the financial statement. Right, am I reading all this out? Following approval of the Council Annual Governance Statement, approve the financial statements, Appendix 1.
Yeah, and then that.
Authorise the S151 officer in consultation with the chairman of the committee to approve any amendments if required after the committee date and prior to the official signing of the financial statements. And the next one is authorise the S151 officer in consultation with the chairman of the committee to approve the letter of representation on its behalf received from KPMG. I need a proposer and a seconder. Right, I'm learning this job quickly. Councillor Danny is proposing, seconded Councillor Mountain. Well, it was a bit of a mouthful, that was, wasn't it? Right, we'll move the vote. Are you all in favour of the other one?
Just a vote, that's what John.
Just a vote. Put your hands up, all in favour of all that, those three things I said. Anybody against? No, any abstentions? Oh, lovely. Let's move on. Internal Audit Progress Report. Put you over to Matthew for this one. Pages 251 to 272.
Thank you, Chair. Evening, everybody. Just our regular progress report to you, our first one since March. I think, obviously, the idea of the report is to give you an update on all the work that we've done. So I think I've taken to page 257. It's just the performance dashboard. So again, just for assurance for the committee, when I pulled this together, it was pretty much halfway through the year, the end of Q2, and we are halfway through delivering our annual plan. So kind of in line with all the other messages and reports you've been getting this evening, we're working really well with officers and PSPS to complete the audits, and we're on track to deliver. So obviously at the end of the year, we should be delivered on time, which means we can then present our annual opinion to you, which is a key statutory report that we do. Page 258 of the pack just gives you details. So part of the standards and work we do is to seek feedback on every audit that we do. Currently, we've had 100% response from people on that feedback, and the results are very good to excellent. If we get any lower scores from officers, then we follow that up and find out if there's things we could have done differently or what's caused that lower score for the audit. And that's all part of our continuous improvement. And then just take you to page 261. It's just the analysis of all the audits that we've done since we last reported to you. So that sets out the areas, the assurance levels that we've given, and the findings that we've made against all the work. And actually, since we last reported to you, we've had all positive assurances on the work that we've done. So there's been no assurance or limited assurance reports issued, but there has been adequate and substantial reports issued over the work that we've done. And then page 263 is just the start of where we summarise for you all the work that we've done. And I think probably page 266 is one of the key elements of this, and that's the follow-up to the P cards. So as you know, the initial P card report came to this committee. It was no assurance. We quite quickly followed that up, and you can see our summary of that. That's now adequate assurance, and the controls in there give us much more confidence and assurance around the whole P card process. So that's just wanted to note that and point that out to the committee. Page 269 just shows you our work plan, and it gives you an idea of where we are against that and the audits that are coming up for the rest of the year. And then finally, page 271 gives the committee an update. So every audit we do, pretty much, if we make recommendations, we get management agreement and a date to implement those. Obviously, doing that addresses possibly the control gap that we found during the audit. You'll see that there's only 2 overdue, but there's some updates on the comments. So in fact, the first one on your list has been done. But as your internal auditors, we just need to test that and confirm that before we take it off the list. And the second one, I think, is underway, and there's been a new date which is suggested for that. But I understand from PSPS colleagues that training is underway. And just aside from that, I think to only have 2 outstanding recommendations is a very, very strong position to be. And many councils have quite a build-up of audit actions that don't get done. So again, in terms of the committee assurance, that's a very strong indicator that internal audit reports and actions are being addressed. So thank you, Chair. I'll leave it there. Open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Very encouraging and very complimentary to all those who've got us in that position to where we are now. Well done. Are there any questions from the table on Matthew's report? Counter Cantwell? Cannot go without you having a few words. Come on.
I just like to keep you entertained.
I'm sure you do.
Could I just ask on page 265, which is page 13 of the report, under performance management, it has, it's got the highest amount of management actions. Could we just get an update on a bit more expansion on that? Because I know there's some limited commentary, and the commentary on these are quite limited as well. But is there any expansion that could be provided on that, just to provide clarity to the committee?
Yeah, do you mean in respect of the audit work or the response?
Just
to
those 3, the low, medium and high.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So in terms of the audit coverage. Yeah. I'm happy to provide perhaps a bit more commentary in future if that would be helpful on these.
It's just helpful to understand,
Yeah, I think in terms of the high rated, we've given some details there of what those were. And really it's about the speed and priority of getting those actions completed. So what we found was a pretty robust and well-controlled area, which is why it's adequate assurance, but just some areas that could be built on and sort of further improved. So, in terms of formal procedure to verify the accuracy, we found the performance data is reported and well reported, but the council could put some testing in just to verify some of that information that's coming through on the performance reporting. And in terms of the KPI on the planning application, again, that was something I think the council was monitoring that as a KPI, but I think they almost kind of missed one of the targets on planning. So it was just bringing that out of the audit. I think the council were aware of that as well, and it's just slightly readjusting and ensuring that what you report captures the key elements.
Just further on, if I may, Chair, have we started to do that as a council?
I think we've done this audit at a moment of time, so any update would come from officers, I think, on that.
Thank you, Councillor Cantwell. Are there any other questions? Councillor Downing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first question is from page 265, which is a planning application, which was a near miss. And is it near miss to be poor, or I just would like to understand that, because if I may continue, I have talked to certain architects in town, and they say it takes a long time to process a planning application. So they were that kind of a pessimist about it. Can you just explain that? Thank you.
Officers might want to come in on this as well, but from our point of view, I think there's a planning target to get a certain type of planning application done on time. I think the council almost was outside of that target, which may have then led to sort of further involvement of the planning inspector or possible measures on that. So it didn't happen, but I think the council got fairly close to that. from our point of view, the performance reporting didn't quite pick that up, or the narrative didn't quite pick that up for senior management, but they may want to comment on that as well.
I'll go to Suzanne.
Just for reassurance, that didn't relate to this council either. This was one of the other councils in the partnership.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Can I come up?
Come back if you like, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My second question is, I think, page 266, which is we talk about centralizing and regulating. Probably you just said it now that it was from Somalia. Do you face any difficulties, during your assessment from, if we talk about teamwork and how the performance of the teams around the strategic alliance, the three, borough councils, what they are doing? So do you face any difficulties in that? I mean, regarding the staffing.
Did we face any difficulties in the follow-up of the audit?
Yeah.
No, not at all. Is that? No. I think, can you explain the question again? I'm doing
the question, because I go just to point 3, which is centralizing and a regulation process, bringing all the 3 councils into alignment. So I'm talking, do you face any difficulties from the side view of the personnel? I mean, the 3 of them, when you work with different borough councils, do you face any issues, trying together, because you want to bring them in alignment, which is one work, which is fit everyone?
I understand. It's not easy, is it, sometimes to bring things into alignment. I think from our perspective, the follow-up testing showed a real improvement in controls and process. I think with respect, your question might be to officers about how well that's all combining. We look at it at a certain point of time. We didn't find any difficulties with that. We found a well-functioning, well-controlled process. I think if you wanted any more insight on that, about how that is currently, officers might be able to give you that information. Okay.
Thank you. I think we are going through a lot of realigning anyway, aren't we, through all the partnership, and I think it's going to take some time before everybody's on the same page. When you're trying to bring 3 organisations together, doing everything spot on the same, it's going to take a few years to get all that right, and there's always a few bumps on the way. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I don't think all these things will come in 5 minutes. It's going to take a bit more time and bit by bit. I mean, I sit with other chairman of the other A&G committees on the other 2 councils, and some of us are miles apart and some of us are working closer together, but we're getting there. So that's the main thing. Right, let's are we taking that report as read then from Matthew? Are you happy with that? All noted, comments noted, all agreed? Matthew, thank you very much as usual. Great report, and lovely to hear all the good things that's happening. Well done, thank you. Now we're going to Suzanne for the risk report. That's on page 193. Suzanne, over to you.
Thank you. This is the usual quarterly report on for the risk update as at the end of Q1, which was the end of June 2024. You'll see on the table in section 2, we've got a summary of the strategic risks, and we set out any changes that have happened since the last report came to you. At paragraph 2.3, we've added in an explanation of the 4 T's. So there are 4 T's in relation to risk control. One of those is tolerate, and you'll see from the actions that we took last time in the minutes that it is quite a technical term in terms of risk around tolerate. So we've put an explanation in about what tolerate actually means so that we don't cause any confusion. We've also had a joint scrutiny work that is undertaken looking at the partnership risks. So they're having a look at, I don't know if other councillors are part of that joint scrutiny of the partnership, but that element of the risk register is coming to that scrutiny committee. Any outcome from that work will come forward to you in future. We've also got the update on the fraud risks, which you'll see in there, which was something I think that's been mentioned in some other reports. Internal audit colleagues assisted us to identify those fraud risks, and these are now part of our usual quarterly reporting. We have some exception reporting of project risks as well. That was one of the questions, the action that was picked up at the last meeting. So we'll be able to bring those forward in future, and that might also pick up some of the concerns earlier about items that come through the efficiency board. If they become project cases, then in the business case, those risks are picked up in there and they come forward in that way. There was also a risk that was identified around local businesses, and that's been referred on to the director and assistant director in that area. And then just finally, Appendix 1, we've tried to improve the formatting a little bit. It was quite difficult to see all the detail in there. So we've removed a few of the columns and made it much more readable. But I'd welcome your views on whether we've quite hit the mark there. If there's other things that you would suggest in terms of that format, trying to find the balance between you having as much information as possible, but still being able to read it, obviously. And then there is that summary at the front that gives you the key information. But yeah, any feedback on that appendix, gratefully received, and I'll happily take any questions.
Are there any questions for Suzanne? I must say that I find the formatting of this is easy to follow. You've got lots of explanation in there, which is just about the right amount of information you need just to qualify things. So I don't have an issue with that. I'm actually quite pleased it's a little bit more, it flows better for me. So has anybody else got any questions for Suzanne on anything that she's spoken about? Councillor Cantwell, over to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much for adding the 4Ts explanation. That's, I think, for the hundreds of members of public who read this document, I think it will be much appreciated. Just on the format, the planned action and future mitigations. Apologies if I missed it. Is there like a separate appendix that provides those dates of actions or ongoing activity? Because I'll take, for example, the first one, ongoing checks and balances, small business relief, page. This is it doesn't have a page number, but after the first page, the page after, and then ongoing checks and balances and small business relief review. I appreciate there's no dates there, or is there a separate appendix with that on?
No, not for that one. All the information that you have is here, but that is one of the areas that we picked up from the last meeting, that as part of our review, we are getting the lead officers to add in those action dates to be much more specific around what has been done and what hasn't, and we'll feed that into the summary report. And I think that was also picked up probably in both external and internal audit reviews recently. So that action has been identified. And in the next report, you'll be able to see the improved wording, not just action dates, but there's a lot more that we need to review on that. But we have picked that up. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Just a quick one, Suzanne. On this appendix, if you could give the pages a number so we can follow them. Someone's got 212 on, and I don't know about the rest. I can't see it. Oh, I see. The staple's in the way. Beg your pardon. I'll take that back. Apologies. They're all numbered, but they're tucked away under the staples. Councillor Austin, over to you.
Following up on that point, for future reference, it's because this is presented in landscape, it would be far better if the stapling is on the top of the page rather than it makes it very awkward being on the side.
That's a strategic observation. Going forward, if we could have the top stapled rather than the side, we could then read the page numbers. Is that okay with you? Well, I'll ask the demo team if they can sort that out for us. Thank you very much. Thank you for bringing that up. That's very kind of you. You outthought me there. Thank you. Right. So, any other questions for Suzanne? Councillor Danny.
Thank you. Just looking at identifications and sustainability of future depot accommodations. I mean, we all know that the new government has put a lot of taxes now on landlords and housings and capital gains. And I can assure you that a lot of letting agencies in Boston has dropped from 12% of service charge to 8 and 5 because of lack of houses, which will create, I think, a sort of pandemic of rough sleepers. And we do have now exceeding 60 people sleeping in the streets, rough sleepers. So it's not, that one doesn't pose a high risk to the Boston Borough Council, because by law, we should accommodate the people who are sleeping roughly if it's -2 degrees in winter. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll refer that to the housing team. Thank you.
Any other questions for Suzanne before we move on? No. Thank you very much. We'll move on then to the next item. We've done 6, so I take it we're going on to 7. That's John, Audit and Governance Report, pages 237 onwards. Or is it 273? Whichever you want to go with, John.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. The report that's presented is your annual report for the work that you undertook in 2023-24. As part of your terms of reference, you make a report to the full council on your activities over that 12-month period. So you can see we did quite a lot of work. We might recall we did quite a lot of work last year trying to improve the formatting of this report so that it contained the key information relating to all of your activities, but also provided links to the reader so they could go and find out more information if they wish to do so. So the report doesn't try and replicate every report that you've had over the last 12 months, but is a signposting and reassurance to the full council of the comprehensive work programme that you've undertaken. So it's presented for your view and any comments you've got tonight, and then for you to recommend it on to the full council at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anyone want to ask any questions of John on the report? No? My golly. Let me take a minute. Councillor Middleton.
Where the names of people who served on the committee. I see Jo Brigham's on there. Are we any nearer to replacing her?
I think we'll pick that up under item 10, if that's okay. Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
No comments, so we take that as read? Or recommendation? So we're all in favour of that? Want a proposer and a seconder? Proposer, Councillor Danny, Councillor Scoot, seconded. So all in favour? Well done, thank you very much. No abstentions, no against. Work programme. It's on page 241 of the agenda pack. He's asked to note this, and everyone happy to take any comments, or right, anybody want to ask any questions on the work programme? Page 241. Any questions, anybody? No. Everybody's happy. Right, okay. So all happy with that, so we'll move on. Now we have to come offline to consider resolving that on section 100 in brackets A, in brackets IV, of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended by the Local Government Access to Information, in brackets variation, order 2006, the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of the exempt information as defined in paragraph 1 of part 1 of the schedule 12A of the order. Do I have a proposer and a seconder? Proposer, Councillor Danny, seconder, Councillor Mountain. We'll move then to the vote. All those in favour? Lovely, thank you very much. Right, and members of the press and public attendance now asked to leave. There's nobody here anyway. The live stream will be switched off. Item, oh, sorry, beg your pardon.